topic is. Computer just froze. Fine. Went away. It's somewhere in the distance. Is this one it? I'm now live. Face looks a little like it's out of balance. Speech. There's movies in here. It's like not even what I was asking about. Why is this stuff not available? Seems illegitimate. 'Cause I don't know where my pictures are. I have no idea who these people are. I don't know. Why do you have so many people available to yourself? Not the right webpage. Wait, how did that work? The computer's off. Must be in cache. I think my computer's on there. I didn't mean to. It's not my ego's fucking deal. Language. Language like language or like language from the language town? It says online. What is it? Or like the language from the language town? says online. Why doesn't it pick a word like the language from the language town? Must have broken. It says online. Why doesn't it pick a word like the language from the language town? It says online. Why doesn't it pick a word like the language from the language town? Why doesn't it pick a word like the language from the language town? Why doesn't it pick a word like the language from the language town? Why doesn't it pick a word like the language from the language town? Why doesn't it pick a word like the language from the language? Yeah, that's what that is. It doesn't even make sense. For 3 days. Only for 3 days. What? Did that make any sense? Didn't say anything before. And the strung out comment is still letting me have had it liked, and it was the first one that popped up. Who the hell asked them what to do? Beep. No one has admitted that they don't have access. Well, yeah, that's a different camera. I don't know how to put them together yet. And big TV. Oh, that one got sound also. Is this true? It seemed significant. No, it didn't do its job at all. Craziness. Let's see a cool thing. I don't know if I know how to do this correctly. I might have to start all over again. I don't know, they haven't committed to me. Oh good, I have plenty of room. Crazy, no? Yeah, it's very crazy. Didn't miss any of those. It's still allegory. Thought it must have been something like that. Yeah, it's a completely abstract thought. Can't see what I'm doing, can you? Give me the walkthrough. Am I supposed to not do that one? Fish. No. Where am I next? this not how it was supposed to work? I don't know. I don't remember. It's totally not the thing. Yeah, who knows? There's someone that exists. Her name, yeah, the ceiling girl. One with the comment from earlier. I don't know, I think he was strange and talking and things. Yeah, I heard there was a lot of things that they had just said to him. What are these gonna get? So many. Again. Some like list or something. Because we don't remember who we're really talking to. I don't know if you guys remember what that was. Well, I might be going too far. I'll just pretend these people are her. And you never really thought that would have been what it was. Too dumb. I don't know who else is allowed. All of these? I don't know. I don't know. These are, I don't know. Probably. Because where did the picture go? Watch you fail and never give up. I don't know. No one gave me answers. You don't want to, like, read this? He's awake. The guy that sits there and doesn't bother with it. Can't tell, it seems to be raping people. Like he can't hear that name. Here's the new Taylor Swift album. I don't know. Maybe another time. I don't even know. You know, it probably got missed, didn't it? Because he did. has changed over the last couple of years. Catch up. So many things there. Who cares? Structure, though. God's year 839. Spring came early to the city of Palmyras, the northernmost great city of the kingdom of Hans the Bear. Periwinkles and prinny-cut tulips bloomed in brilliant purples and blues all along the banks of the great Mesure de Laval, and the wind seemed constant and gentle from the southwest, hardly ever shifting around to bring a chill from the gloomy gulf of Corona. The city itself was quite lively, with folk out of doors in droves nearly every day, soaking in the sunshine. In truth, the world has shaken off the tragedies of the rosy plague of 827 to 834, a plague cured by a miracle at a shrine atop a faraway mountain, a miracle revealed to the world by the woman who now ruled by Baroness of Palmyras, since Josephine Winden, the Avril character, accepted the title. Each year had seemed a bit brighter than the one before, as if all the world, natural and man-made, was reacting positively to her rule. Palmyras had never known such prosperity and peace. The city's numbers had swelled during the last years of the plague, for Palmyras had served as the gateway to the Northland and the miracle at Mount Ada, and many pilgrims stayed on the city after their long return journey. Farmers had replaced those families decimated by the plague, cultivating new fields about the city for several miles to the north and west. Craftsmen, seeing an opportunity for a new and large market, had set up shops all along the well-ordered avenues, serving the needs of the thriving communities of both farmers and sailors. And under the guidance and tolerant example of Baroness Josephine and Abbot Brahmin Hurd of St. Precious Abbey, the population of dark-skinned Southerners, the Baronese, had thrived. That particular group had been hit especially hard by the plague, and then hit hard again by the hatred of the Brothers Repentant, a rebellious Anglican church faction that blamed the heathen Baroness for the rosy plague and incited the folk of Palmyras to retributive violence against them. That had all changed under the leadership of Baroness Josephine, and dramatically. Many of those baronies who had come north from their homeland or from the southernmost cities of Hans the Bear to partake of the curative miracle known as the Covenant of Athlin had found opportunities in Palmyras that they never would have dreamed possible in Hans the Bear. Now nearly a third of the dock workers and the crewmen of the many ships that called Palmyras their home port were Baronese. A few even owned their own boats now or served as officers, even captains, on the Palmyras garrison ships, and while the attitudes of those native to Hans the Bear hadn't fundamentally changed concerning the Baronese, with the subtleties of racism deeply ingrained, there were enough Baronese now to afford their communities a measure of security. Even more than that, there were enough of them to begin to show the native Bearmen that underneath the skin color and the cultural differences, the Baronese were not so different at all. Throughout this healthy city of peace and prosperity, where the future seemed so bright, Baroness Josephine often wandered. Though without her baronial raiments and guards, she was in her mid-30s now, but neither the years nor the long and difficult road she had traveled, a road full of pain and trial and grievous losses, had done anything to diminish her inner glow of vitality. For she knew the truth now. All of it. She had seen the miracle of Evelyn's arm on the flat top of Mount Ada. She had spoken to the ghost of Brother Romeo Malahi, and learned of the covenant, as she knew. Josephine had lost her parents, and then her adoptive parents. She lost her Brian, her dear beloved husband. She lost her child, torn from her womb, she believed by the demon-inspired Delbert Markwort. But now she had come to understand what those sacrifices had gained, the betterment of the world and of her little corner of the world. And now she knew the truth of God, of spirituality, of living beyond this mortal coil. From that truth came a serenity and a comfort that Josephine had not known since her innocent days as a child running in the fields and pine valleys, of Dundalis in the wild timberlands, her days before she had come to know such pain and death. She was out one warm spring night, wandering under a canopy of countless stars, absorbing the sights, the smells, the noises of Palmyras. A fish vendor called out a list of his fresh stock, his voice thick with the accent of Beren. Giuseppe couldn't help but smile at the sound, for only a couple of years before, no Baronese vendor would have ventured into this part of Palmaris with any hopes of selling his wares. Indeed, back in those days that seemed so far removed now, many of the Palmaris bearmen wouldn't think of eating anything touched by Baronese hands. Giuseppe made her way across town. A few curious stares followed her, but she was fairly certain that she was not recognized. With the three-quarter moon, sheetless shining silver overhead, the Baroness came in sight of a structure that sent waves of emotion through her. The Giant's Bones, it was called, through a previous incarnation, before it had been burned to its foundation by Father Abbot Markworth's lackeys. The establishment had been known as Fellowship Way, and had garnered a reputation as one of the most hospitable taverns in Palmaris, or in any other city. She paused before the place, her full lips pursed, and brushed her shoulder-length blonde hair back from her face. In Fellowship Way, Giuseppe had gone from a scared little girl to a woman, under the loving tutelage of her adoptive parents, Grievous and Pettibois Chilichunk. She walked along this avenue often now, and never without pausing before the doors and staring, remembering the good times spent within, forcing away the terrible memories of Grievous and Pettibois' last dark days. She remembered Pettibois most vividly, the woman dancing among the tables, a huge tray full of foaming flagons balanced on one strong arm, her smile brighter than the light from the generous hearth. Giuseppe could hear Pettibois' boisterous laughter again, truly the most joyous sound she had ever known. After a few moments, and now with a wide smile on her face, Giuseppe moved around the side of the Giant's Bones and down a narrow alley, coming to a very climbable gutter pipe. Up she went, moving with the grace of a warrior, of one who had perfected the Benel de Sada, the elven sword dance. She came to the roof and shifted along, then leaned back against the warm bricks of the chimney, and stared out to the east, to the tall masts standing above the foggy shroud like great skeletal trees on the distant Mesure de Laval. Even those masts evoked memories in her, for she had spent her first dozen years in the timberlands, the source of the great trees used for constructing the ship's masts. How many times had she watched a caravan roll out of Dundalis down the south road, the ox team straining with every step, dragging a huge log behind? How many times had she and O'Brien sneaked out of the brush along the side of the road and climbed atop one of those timber sleds, after betting on how many yards they could get to before the driver noticed them and shooed them away? "O'Brien," she said with a wistful smile, and she felt the moistness creeping into her eyes. He had given her the nickname, Pony, when they were young, a name that had stuck through almost all of her years. Hardly anyone called her that now. No one but Roger Lockless, actually, and he only sparingly. She preferred it that way, she supposed. Somehow, with O'Brien gone, the name Pony just didn't seem to fit her anymore. Barely 2 decades had passed since those innocent and wonderful days, and yet Giuseppe could hardly believe that she had ever known such a carefree existence. All her adult life, even before her adult life, had been filled with tumult and momentous events. She sat on that flat rooftop now, smiling the smoke from the fire below and the salt from the Mesure de Laval and the Gulf of Corona beyond it. She let the memories of her life and the lessons play out of their own accord, no doubt coloring, albeit unconsciously, her feelings about present surroundings. Minutes drifted by, becoming an hour, and a chill breeze came in off the water. The Baroness hardly cared, hardly even noticed, just sat and reflected, falling within herself to a place of calm and quiet, a place untouched by evil memories or thoughts of the bustle of her present day, seemingly endless duties. She didn't notice the glow of a lantern moving along the alleyway below her, nor the creak of the gutter pipe under the weight of a climbing man. "There you are," came a familiar voice, startling Giuseppe and drawing her from her reverie. She turned to see the smiling face, sharp dimples, and ever-present beard shadow of Abbot Brahmin Herd, as the monk pulled himself onto the roof. He reached back and took a lantern from someone below, then set it on the roof. Brahmin was into his mid-40s now, nearly 10 years Giuseppe's senior. His hair was as much silver as its former dark brown, and he had many lines running out of the sides of his grey eyes. Smile increasing, he called them. He had always been a large man, a gentle giant, barely chested and barrel-waisted, but of late the waist had been outdoing the chest. Behind him came his reliable second, a dear old friend who had been with Brahmin for more than 2 decades. Master Marlborough Vicenti was a nervous little man with far too many twitches, but his competent mind seemed to see many things just slightly different from others, often offering a helpful viewpoint. Though she always preferred to be alone in this, her special place, and though she felt as if the lantern was a bit of an intrusion, Josephine could not help but be happy at the sight of her two dear friends. Both these monks had stood behind Josephine and Elbrian in the dark last days of Father Abbot Delibert Marquart. Though their lives would have been forfeit, and horribly so, had Marquart won, as it had seemed he would. In the years since, Josephine's relationship with the pair had gone through many stages, including that Josephine was angry with them, and with all the Elbelican monks who had hidden in their abbeys, afraid to try and help heal the plague victims. All her bad feelings about that time had been long washed away, though for in the last few years Brahman and Vicente had proven of immeasurable help to Josephine, as she had settled into ruling the great city. As Baroness, the secular concerns of Palmaris were her domain, and as Abbot of St. Precious, the spiritual concerns of Palmaris lay in the domain of Brahman Herd. Never before had Palmaris known such harmony between church and state, not even when good Baron Bildeborough sat on the secular throne at Chasewind Manor and kind-hearted Abbot Dobrynin presided over the St. Precious. Did it ever occur to you that my reason for leaving Chasewind Manor without an escort was so that I could find some time alone? Josephine asked, but her accusatory question was delivered with a smile. And so we are. Abbot Brahman replied, huffing and puffing, and sliding up to sit next to her, just us three. Josephine only sighed and closed her eyes. Now you will never see the sail from that position. Brahman teased her good-naturedly. She opened one eye, staring hard at the monk. The sail? Why, yes, that is the spring moon, is it not, Master Vicente? Brahman asked dramatically. Vicente looked up and scratched his chin. I do believe that is. Yes, father, he answered. Josephine knew when he was being teased, and given that she understood then to what sail Brahman was referring, she wouldn't make it easy for him, though. I see many sails, or at least masts, she answered, though with Captain Alumet's Saudi Jacinta sailing along the Mantis arm, none of these are of any interest to me. Indeed, said Brahman, it would not interest the Baroness of Palmaris if her king sailed to her city. Alas for the kingdom with such disrespect. Vicente chimed in dramatically, slapping his skinny forearm across his brow. Josephine's lips grew very tight, but in truth, it was a facade for her companion's benefits, for she didn't mind the needling. It was common knowledge that King Danube Brock Ursal did intend to spend this summer in Palmaris as he had the last two, and the two before that. Though on those first couple of occasions, he had arrived only to learn that the Baroness of the city had left her domain, traveling north to the timberlands to summer with old friends. This year, like the last two, Danube had taken care to send advance warning of his arrival and to request that Josephine be present for his likely visit, as it was no secret to all the people that King Danube would grace their city once more this summer of God's year 839. So it was no secret to anybody in Palmaris, and in Ursal, and in all the towns in between, that their king was not coming for any urgent state business, nor even to ensure that Palmaris was running well under the leadership of the young Baroness. No, he was coming out of a personal motivation, one that went by the name of Josephine Winden. Do you suppose, dear brother, that this will be the summer when aloof Josephine at last allows King Danube to kiss her? Brahman asked Vicente. On the hand, it's not is it? Stop for a moment. On the hand, Skitty Man replied. Then the side of your face will be wet when I slap you. Josephine put in with a chuckle. Both monks had a good laugh at that, but then Brahman's expression grew serious. Do you understand that he will likely be more forward towards you with his intentions? He asked. Josephine looked away, back before the distant river. I do, she admitted. And how will you respond? Brahman asked. How indeed, she wondered. She liked Danube Brock Ursal well enough. Who would not? For the king had always been polite and fair and generous to her. But though he was several years older than she, near Brahman's age, he was certainly not unpleasant to look at, with his dark hair and strong build. Yes, Josephine liked him. and would have had no second thoughts about agreeing to serve as his escort while he stayed in Palmyras. No second thoughts about allowing the relationship to develop, to see if love might blossom, except there was ever that one problem. Josephine knew, and clearly recognized. She had given her heart to another, to O'Brien Wyndon, her best friend, her husband, her lover, the man against whom she would ever measure all and others, and against whom she knew no others would ever measure up. She liked Anew sincerely, but she knew in her heart that she would never love him. She would never love any man the way she had loved O'Brien. Given that inescapable truth, would she be acting fairly if she accepted his proposal? Josephine honestly didn't know. Even Roger Lockless had come to see the union as a favorable event. Brother Vicente remarked, and this time Josephine's scowl at him was not feigned. I did not mean, the monk stammered. But his words withered, as did his heart, under her terrible gaze. And Josephine did not relent for a long while. She understood the implications of all this, and indeed she knew that Roger Lockless, her best friend and closest advisor at Chasewood Manor, had changed his opinion of King Danube's advances to her. So much so, in fact, that Roger and his wife, Daisy, had left Palmyras before the first winter's snows, bound for Dundalis, far to the north. Roger, a friend of the dead, O'Brien, had been adamant against Josephine's having anything to do with the king or any other man, out of loyalty to O'Brien, whom he knew. But that position had softened gradually over the course of the previous summer. Still, Josephine did not like Vicente, or anyone else. Using that sort of external pressure over what had to be, in the end, a decision based on her feelings. Yes, it might be a good thing for the common folk for her to wed King Danube and thus become Queen of Hans the Bear. Certainly that, in that capacity, she could act as mediator in the still common squabbling beneath church and state. Forgive my friend, Abbot Baumann begged her a moment later. We of the church would certainly welcome your union with King Danube. Should it come to pass, he explained, of course, I would welcome it all the more if it was what was truly in Pony's heart. He quickly added as she scowled all the more fiercely. Oops. But that position had softened gradually. Over the course of the previous summer, still Josephine did not like Vicente or anyone else, using that sort of eternal pressure over what had to be, in the end, a decision. What a crazy world. Of eternal pressure over what had to be, in the end, a decision based on her feelings. Yes, it might be a good thing for the common folk for her to wed King Danube, and thus become Queen of Hans the Bear. Certainly, in that capacity, she could act as mediator in the still common squabbling between church and state. Forgive my friend, Abbot Baraman, begged her a moment later. We of the church would certainly welcome your union with King Danube. Should it come to pass, he explained. Of course, I would welcome it all the more if it was what was truly in Pony's heart. He quickly added as she scowled all the more fiercely. Josephine had just begun to argue when Brahman had added the last sentence, in one word. Pony surely stopped her short. That was her nickname, her most common name of many years ago. The one that, for a brief period, almost all of her friends and O'Briens used. After the onset of the plague, when Josephine had come to realize that she could not simply hide in Dundalis mired in her grief, she had purposely abandoned the nickname, and taken on the more formal mantle of Josephine Wyndon. Now to hear Brahman say it so plainly and so unexpectedly, it brought her with it a host of the images and memories. The king is not in Pony's heart, she said softly, all traces of her anger flown, never in Pony's heart. Neither Brahman nor Marlborough seemed to catch her deepest meaning. And it seems that I must remind you, my friends, that I am officially of the state, not your church. Josephine added, We know the truth of that, Their Vicenti remarked with a wry grin. You are of both church and state, it would seem. Brahmin quickly added, before Barbara's uncalled for sarcasm could set her back on the defensive again, you chose the position of state of baroness over any that the church might have bestowed upon you. 'Tis true, but in that capacity you have worked to bring us together. In spirit and in practice, your troubadour would never have accepted me in any position of power without a tremendous fight. Giuseppe said, I do not agree, said Brahmin. Not after the second miracle of Mount Ada and the covenant of Evelyn. Even Fio Bao Reo Raya left that sacred place a changed man, left understanding the power of goodness of Giuseppe Winden. He cannot have opposed your appointment to a post as great as Abbess of St. Precious even. Giuseppe didn't respond, for in truth, she had heard the hollowness of her own proclamation that she was more of the state the moment she had spoken the words. You chose to be baroness because in that capacity and with me your friend, serving as abbot of St. Precious, you knew that you could do the most good. Brahmin went on, and you chose wisely, as every person in Palmyras will attest. So again, it will be for you to choose, weighing your heart against the desires to do great things for all the world. Doubt not that any ascension in Josephine's Winden to the position of Queen of Hans the Bear would be welcomed throughout the Ambelican Church as a great blessing, a time of hope indeed for a brighter future. The future of the Church looks bright already, she reasoned. Indeed, Brahmin agreed, for the covenant of Avalon has brought many of our previously battled brothers together in spirit, for the time being at least. There was a measure of ominous in his last statement that perceptive Giuseppe did not miss. Father Abbot Arguer's health is failing, Brahmin admitted. He is an old man, growing tired, by all accounts. He may remain in power and in this world for another year, perhaps two, but doubtfully more than that. And there is no clear successor, Vicenti added. Fio Beo Rea will likely try for the position, and I will back him, Abbot Brahmin quickly, and surprisingly added. Will you not seek the nomination? Giuseppe asked. I am still too young to win, I fear, said Brahmin, and if I opted to try, I would be taking votes away from Bao Ray, no doubt. A man of whom you were never fond, Giuseppe reminded him, but a far better choice than the alternative. Brahmin replied, for if it is not Master Bao Ray, then surely it will be Abbot Olin of St. Bondebruce of Entel, a man who did not partake of the covenant of Avalon. Entel is a long way from the Barbican. Giuseppe and Dryly, a man who quietly supported Marcello's de Unero and his brothers repentant during the dark days of the plague. Brahmin went on, referring to the band of renegade monks led by the firzt de Unero, who was Giuseppe's most hated enemy. Never officially sanctioned by the church, the brothers repentant spread trouble and grief throughout much of the kingdom, inciting riots and claiming that the plague was punishment from God for the irreverence of many people, particularly those followers of Evelyn in the church and the heathen Baronese. Brahmin's startling claim gave Giuseppe pause, and so it will likely be that Master Fio Beo Ray, or perhaps Abbot Olin, no fool and no stranger to the games of politics, will win. In either case, the smooth voyage of the Babelican Church might soon encounter an unexpected storm. Better it would be for us, for all, if Giuseppe Winden had assumed a position of even greater authority. Giuseppe stared at her two friends long and hard, recognizing that responsibility had indeed come a-calling. Once again, she spent a long moment considering King Danube again, for he was a good and decent man, a handsome man, but she knew that she would never love him as she had loved O'Brien. I don't know. I don't know. You probably haven't at some time. Prologue 839. That part. What? That's like a prologue. That part. What? That's like a prologue. Where am I doing this from? Is that it?